Welcome to this edition of Diligence Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, and I'll be your host for today's show. Today, we're going to talk about the Diligent Director Network, how technology helps diverse board recruitment. And joining me is Meghan Day, who's the Senior Director of the Board Member Experience with Diligent, and is the person spearheading the Diligent Director Network. Welcome, Meghan.
Thanks, TK. Really excited to be here.
So I think we better do some explanation first. One of the things is we've spent a lot of airtime on diverse boards these days. We just finished a 4-part series. We looked very heavily at what some of the solutions were. And it's interesting that, as you're going to explain in a moment, on what Diligent has done to sort of support the improvement of boardroom diversity. So, Meghan, if you could start sort of by explaining what the network is, a little bit about the diversity data and the relationships that we've started, and then maybe even why Diligent sort of dove into this in the first place.
Absolutely. And to start and set the stage, Diligent Director Network is something we launched just a couple of months ago, but we're really excited about the progress that we've been able to make and are excited to engage with the broader governance community on how this can become a more valuable tool and resource. And what it is exactly is the largest and most diverse database of board members and rising board members, board ready talent in the world. And our thinking is that this data set will really allow companies to allow data to better inform their director recruitment and board search process. And TK, I want to back up and actually start with the why that you mentioned before. And, your series that you just did recently on systemic racism was fascinating and so important. And that was a huge factor in our decision making to expedite this particular product. But backing up even further, you think about the disruption that's facing companies, just generally speaking. It's a regular theme on your show. And then you throw in 2020 and the pandemic, wildfires, the systemic racism that's happening so visibly here in the United States. And it's just incredibly clear that now more than ever, who you have around your boardroom table truly matters. And so when we were thinking about this, at Diligent, we truly believe that good governance is fundamental to the competitive success of organizations. And so we want to help our customers build better boards. And when we were thinking about it, the current model in a lot of ways is a little bit flawed. And those flaws are now being magnified by this real cry, this mounting need for a more diverse candidate pool. Not news to anybody in the governance space, but when you think about board recruiting, candidates are really sourced in two ways: through personal networks, through search firm networks, and there's very good reason why that is. Trust is such an incredibly huge factor in terms of making sure you're bringing on the right person with the right skills, that they fit into the dynamic of the board and can really add value from day one. And given that turnover is as low as it is, that tenure rates are as long as they are, boards can't really afford to screw that up. So obviously getting that person right is incredibly important. But you look at things that just recently happened, like what the Wells Fargo CEO said a few weeks ago, that the reason why there's not diversity within their bank is because there's a lack of diversity and talent to choose from, to bring into the organization. And that is really fundamentally not true. And so we're thinking about this at Diligent, coming from a place of responsibility. We work with close to 20,000 organizations around the world, the eyeballs of people that are responsible for the decision making at organizations of all shapes and sizes, all different industries. And we believe we can really have an impact to help organizations build more effective boards. And so when we were thinking about this, Diligent, fundamentally, we're a software as a service business. That will always be our core model. But we think technology can really add a lot of value here. And so when we were thinking about what more we could do, two things kept coming up in our conversations with our customers, with board members. And one is around how can we improve the visibility into the pipeline of diverse talent? And then how can we increase the transparency of open board opportunities? And that's sort of the foundation of Diligent Director Network. It's almost a marketplace that we're building that exists within the Diligent ecosystem that allows diverse talent to have more visibility. So we're building that out through a couple of different ways, through a rising director nomination program. So if you're an existing board member, you can nominate great talent with an emphasis on diversity. And then we're also partnering with different diversity-minded organizations like Latino Corporate Directors Association, like Executive Leadership Council, folks that have often appeared on your show, and we're working with them to highlight their members, bring them into our network, create profiles for them. And then on the flip side, start to do more to drive demand amongst our customer base, get them using this database to help inform their search process, and also provide a little bit more visibility into the open roles that they have. The idea of getting a board seat is a little bit shrouded in mystery. It's a behind closed doors kind of thing and very reliant on personal networks. So at the very start, is there really harm in posting open board opportunities? And so that's the sort of the thesis that we're working with right now, going out to our customer base, going out to other organizations that have board seats. So a great example of that, private equity firms, they have the oversight of often dozens of portfolio companies. Can we work with them to bring in open board opportunities, make those more visible? And can we work with search firms to do the same? And we're really excited to share that we've seen great traction on all fronts. We're actively bringing in rising diverse directors, board ready talent into the database. And then on the flip side, I think we have something like 80 open board opportunities visible within the application. And again, this idea that it's just meant to raise your hand, to help level the playing field in a lot of ways, and to get boards and directors to think a little bit differently about how they're sourcing candidates.
So you touched on this, but I think it's important. So how does a director network operate, both for the company that has the opening or for the candidate, the diverse candidate that believes they are sort of board service qualified to get on the rising list? So
Yeah.
explain, if you will, how that works.
Yeah, so a couple of different facets. So the first is this Rising Director program. And we're going out to our diligent customer base, which consists of something like 700,000 board members and executives around the world. And they're allowed within the diligent application to nominate anyone that they believe is qualified. So the first step there is to maybe do a little bit of digging on your own to see if you have potential connections to any diligent users. But the second is through membership in a variety of different diversity-minded organizations or different leadership groups. And so we are actively working with, close to, I would say, 20 organizations right now to bring in their members. So if there are different diversity-minded groups that you're a part of, please flag that to diligence attention. We are looking to make these partnerships as broad reaching as possible. And then I think probably most important to note is that this is a totally free service for everyone involved. So diligent customers right now can go directly within the application, start doing searches, and can actually not only nominate people, but can post open opportunities directly from within the application. It's a really short process. We're not asking for pages of material. Again, we're just trying to start to build a little bit of visibility. So if you are a customer right now, you have complete access to this to be a part of this process. And then for rising directors, diversity members, we get you access to the system as well.
So it is a little disappointing to hear that somebody is still saying that there isn't qualified candidates out there. I know I worked with the New York Stock Exchange, this is years ago, trying to debunk that
Yeah.
theory. But evidently it's not totally debunked at this point if people are still mentioning that as a hurdle. Um, So, Megan, we have about a minute left, but I know this whole thing is relatively new, but what kind of conversations are you hearing among both companies and candidates?
Yeah, great question. And you just touched upon one of the things that I really think we're starting to dispel, and hopefully this becomes a moot point. And that's around this idea that there's a pipeline problem. That is just fundamentally not true. And any organization or leader of one of these diversity groups will certainly tell you that they have a long list of highly qualified people, and we're looking to help expose those people in an easier way versus just your own personal network. The second thing is really some of the conversations about how intentional this needs to be. It's really easy to maintain the status quo, but it's going to take some real leadership and leaning in to think about what a meaningful change when it comes to diversity at the board and executive level within your organization might look like. And that's going to require hard conversations. It's going to take some time. But it's one that it sounds like boards, I think now more than ever, are willing to do the hard work around, which is really good to hear because it's really not a pipeline problem, as I said before. In a lot of ways, it's truly a demand problem, a network problem. And to that end, I think the third point is that there are tons of resources to help boards take action outside of the Diligent Director Network. And I want to specifically call out some of the great work that the the Diverse Corporate Directors Coalition, the DCDC, they just released a really fantastic call to action for equity and inclusion in the boardroom. And they outline the policies, the practices, and the metrics around what boards can do from day one to start to make some progress here.
Well, Megan, it sort of feels like if your energy and passion for this um, um, fuels this directors network, I think it's off to a very successful start. I want to thank you for joining us and explaining how this works and how people might benefit from it. And good luck in the future with making this, a meaningful factor for making more diverse boards.
Thanks, TK.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.